So
what do you want to know?
So, well, first of all, I'll have a measure of a few. Well, which one's your main one?
So this is what that's what I play. You may recognise this because, like being a young kid round your friend's house, and they go, "Do you want to borrow my favourite toy for a week?" That's what you put together for Dan on his fitting, and because of playing with Dan, you know, he goes, "I'm pretty sure that's totally wrong for you, Jeremy." I'm like,
got it.
Okay, all right, yeah, fair enough. Why don't you have a go at this?
Yeah.
And we were playing together a couple of weeks ago, and the first one I hit with this, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, interesting. And then the second one, it was like, okay, I've really hit the middle of the fairway, and that felt really easy to swing.
Got it. Yeah.
And then yesterday morning, just in case it all went a little bit sideways and my driver swing's a bit erratic, I went down to the studio right near where I live and captured a load of foresight data for you, just in case. So that was interesting. I then swapped this head into that shaft and said, like, let's see what happens here then. Okay. Oh, interesting, that's happening. So yeah, history with it is that thing I bought in January, just off the rack, on the advice of a friend, a golf coaching friend, not a fitter. And my previous driver was an Epic Sub-Zero first gen.
First gen one, very good.
65S, and you'll see this. I generally don't spin the ball very much. So, moving from the sub with the 65S, you know, again off the rack shaft, to that was like picking up a telegraph pole. Oh, okay. This feels very, very different. Results-wise, I mean, this would be an interesting part of our chat in terms of, I think I could use a better golf swing.
All the elements of that. I've got this on data file,
but where I'm able to hit absolute mega bombs with that sometimes.
As with the Rogue.
But in general, it's quite erratic club.
More likely to be, in terms of what's your first miss more like? Was it more likely to be a
left?
Hook left, more of a hook left or more of a pull?
A pull hook.
Combination thereof.
Yeah, that would be the bad one in general. Although when I'm sort of on, let's say, on form with the big stick, it'll all be fine. They'll be quite fadey in general. Like, oh, it started up the left, lovely. It's dropping back right. I'm really pleased with that. And then every now and again, like cover drive happens, and I'm 3 fairways right.
Got it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in general, compared to my playing partners, let's say, who aren't obviously great golfers either, I'm past them with driver. And like the young teaching pro that I've worked with a bit and everything, okay, he put a new stick in the bag, which helped him out, and he was then about 5 further than me. But I can hit bombs. I just, I also, it was a bit like school grade cricket. There's lots of extras on the scorecard, and then the odd unplayable ball that came out of my hand, and the wickets are everywhere, and everyone's going, "Why? But you've got 19 extras off 4 overs, but also 3 wickets."
Got it. Yeah, I mean, so certainly, I mean, they're very different animals, the 2 shafts.
This has not been in my bag for a while, but it's at that area of the bag where I have used it. You can also effectively ignore this, because this was another little toy that Dan lent me the other week, just to have a little whack at. This has become my go-to.
Got it.
It's an absolute rocket.
Okay,
it's a proper rocket ship.
That's good.
And that's at the top of a set that I was, shall we say, mildly fitted for. At a golf show, on the Mizuno shaft optimizer tool, hit different ones for about 45 minutes, and then went and got a very, very, very good deal. So I went 223s up to that 225.
Okay.
And on the spec sheet, when they were fitted, I asked them to put the 223 loft on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And should be one up. Obviously, I hit off mats quite a bit, so.
Lies pretty. Well, if anything, relative to where their stand is, I'd actually say it's slightly flatter. But
I don't struggle to draw the ball.
But that's probably not the worst thing in the world if, based on that, being a hair flatter, if you're right to left player, it's certainly not going to hurt in that respect. But it is the 223 loft, so okay. And
good.
generally, flight-wise, would you say you tend to be kind of trajectory-wise fairly neutral, higher side?
So
kind of where you want it to be.
with the top of the bag, nothing has ever been fitted. It's all been some testing, let's say, or put that in like big air quotes. I ended up with the Epic sub because I took a little trip to an American Golf at Trent Park and took 6 drivers out onto the driving range and ended up with the wrong one. Lols. But got like obviously big bomb numbers out of the Epic sub and went, well, I guess I want that one then.
It was a good head though. But it was a very, whilst it had the kind of the bombing element to it, it was actually one of the more, I would say one of the more consistent ones from a spin and a ball speed point of view. It wasn't, there've been some since, like that Paradigm can get a little knuckly. So Epic Flash could get knuckly. Whereas the first gen was really pretty consistent. So So I mean, certainly up at the top end, you've got a 15, 16, 17 gram difference in shaft weight. The TZ's not a tip heavy series. Previous models have been, but with the Paradigm and that, it's kind of neutrally balanced, bit of weight in the head. Rather than tip balance shaft, a bit of weight in the head, and that one's sort of the shaft's very, very even, torsionally stable, but it's got a little bit of response in the tip. But then there's some head mass on the end, and let's say for Dan, because he's got he's not someone, he kind of has an initial pull, but then isn't handsy. So if you go too tip heavy, then it just gets stuck. Hence steel pivoters, things that works in the iron shafts for in the past, but needs a bit of head weight. The hazardous yellow is 76 grams, is more of a counterbalance setup, so it's a ½ inch longer, but again, to get that kind of swing weight out of it, that's also got a strong-ish head weight. So what you get with this one is more of a kind of a bookended weight, where you've got weight in the handle end in the shaft and then weight in the head end, but a lot of weight in the shaft generally, so it's just a lot of mass. And so that normally is what makes that kind of all or nothing kind of element to it. When you get it right, you're going to get it really right. But when it goes wrong, it's going to go really wrong. So
that sounds like my golf game off
the
tee.
That's like, certainly if you take the Modus 115 as the shaft, they're strong, they're kind of stronger end of mid in terms of weight without being crazy heavy. The high 70s on a driver shaft is now quite up there. We don't generally do that often, go up to that weight now. So certainly the Acra shaft and the iron shafts tally up in principle a little bit more from a shaft weight point of view. But yeah, it's
only ½ inch difference between that shaft and that one. Wow. Because it feels light years difference when I put them in my hand and swing them.
And on the when you have a ½ inch difference at the grip end, when you put it on the diagonal, it'll come out like a ball difference. So it'll play more because on the angle, certainly. And then when you've got a lot of weight in that, that also makes it feel a bit more unwieldy, or can make it feel a bit more unwieldy as well. So, right, grab any club you like and have a few swipes. We'll take it all from there.
Get the body moving, yeah, for sure.
Naturally right-handed?
Yeah. Well, I write left-handed.
That's always the one I've never quite worked out.
I throw right-handed, and every sport is right-handed.
We'll do just warm-up ones if it's a wedge off the front.
Pool and snooker.
Okay.
Left-handed.
Okay, interesting. Because they're the kind of the more high control ones, writing and things, kind of finer control. I know of a few people who've been that way. It's an interesting one. Yeah.
It came out
And
right
strength-wise, more right side a bit stronger or relatively even?
So give an example of what
So
I might
if you
do.
were, like, for example, if you're opening a jam jar, would you go for the right hand first or
Left. But
okay.
I like,
or just just wrench? So, yeah.
I'll try and jump. If I want to jump as high as I can off one leg, it'll be my right leg, and you'll see that a bit in my swing. I want to generate power like that. So that's an interesting one in terms of how my body wants to generate power. I think I should put less loft in my hand now because I'm swinging it fine.
Did you start playing at a young age?
Had a golf club in my hand quite a bit as like a toddler and a little kid. I'd later cut down ladies 9-iron that I could barely lift up off the floor. I tend to come a bit too inside, but I won't come over the top from there. I find a way to come inside and then sometimes even more inside than that.
Okay, got it.
And
so there's a roll inside or just...
get to sort of here in a really extreme manner. Spend a lot of time doing towel drill and having like a putter head cover over here. Keep myself connected with my irons, which has produced some really good results this year. My iron ball striking's got a lot better. A lot better. Beg pardon?
Divots change? Have you changed depth of divot?
I'm shallower, Like it's a different golf swing almost. It's the first time I've really been able to make a change from being a bit steep and then kind of getting out of the way of it.
Got it. Yep.
Which is really nice. And that instantly changed my driver pattern instantly.
Yeah.
Like I was commenting to friends, it sounds different. As in, I'm obviously hitting the ball out of a different bit of the face. There's been some changes this year, but positive ones overall.
And flight-wise, did it pick it up a little bit more or more just square it off a little bit more?
So my iron flight is really nice, actually. It's like it doesn't billow. I can knock it down a little bit. I'm not that good at really knocking it down on the course because I can still get a little bit steep. But that seems to produce quite a strong flight for me anyway. With driver, it's never as high as I think I want it or need it to be. I make a lot of my yardage on the ground. Like carry it to 60, 270, but it's a 300-yard drive in most conditions as well.
Where do you play your golf generally?
In and around this part of the world, actually. I live just up in Surbiton. And I have a little membership at a studio that's just around the corner from my house. So through that, we've had a couple of like these group memberships. One Golf is one of them. We've got Get Golfing, who have got a lot of courses around the area. So we sort of had a pseudo corporate membership with that. So we could knock around different courses in the Reigate, Surrey area. So my flat's actually very close to Hampton Court, so I play there quite often. Play down at Leatherhead quite often. I have a friend at Royal Mid Surrey who works there, so I get to play that quite often, which is really, really, really nice. So that's sort of where I play most of my golf. It was a fun drive through here to drive past Burr Hill. I caddied in open qualifying this year there for young Sammy.
And which ball do you play?
So I've currently got a Strixon Z-Star Diamond.
Okay.
But I've been just sort of messing around with balls this year as well.
Yeah, these retain a bit more spin with irons.
I played TP5 quite a lot. Price point wise, it's quite nice to be able to pick up premium balls for that amount. And if I go into Titleist, I tend towards Pro V1, but that's really based off of feel. Like I really don't like the clickiness.
X is a little bit harder.
Which is why I wanted to try this one recently, because I'm just reading the specs. You're like, oh, it's got all the hardness and sort of driver characteristics that you kind of might want. But it's got a nice feeling cover on it.
The Titleist did get. I went to the TaylorMade several years back because I felt the tightest beginning, I was always the X, so that when it was lower spin, and started to find it a little bit clicky. But I've just switched back, just with the new driver I've got, I need the slightly lower spin off of it. I thought I'm not going to give up 7 yards for. And I could afford to lose a little bit of spin with the irons as well.
Yeah.
So, and tee height, we can go lower or higher. So
Higher than that, I'm saying. Is it a turn it to the...
Yeah, so turn it anti-clockwise to go up and clockwise to go down.
Up that way.
Right, that should be about right. So dot-wise, where do you want
just on the top is perfect.
On the top,
yeah.
Looking at me.
Cool. It was another interesting point. I went back through some old driver sessions in my phone, stuff like that, and did remember that when I was going through a good period with this one, I was definitely gripping it like down here.
Right, yeah. So that'll have the effect of dropping swing weight by...
Yeah, it feels different in my
2 or
hands
3
to be
points, I
from
thought.
there to there.
Obviously, same dead weight, because you've still got the bit of grip above your hands. But
Yeah, but like leverage-wise, it
Yeah.
felt very, very different.
Ooh. It can often, see how we go, it often looks a little lower than it is because of that.
Because of that thing,
base. So,
yeah. Cool.
We'll see how we go. I can always take it down a fraction.
Yeah. So if the performance was remarkably different.
Yeah, so very characteristic of what I can get lost in. And more so in an indoor setting.
Yeah.
For some reason. Like it's hard for me to repeat that 10 times if I'm standing on an outdoor driving range or on a tee box.
I think what will happen is, whilst it's a very, realistic depiction of what happens. Outdoors, you'll react more directly
I
to
react
seeing
to
what's
what's just
like.
happened.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that
whereas
next
in
time.
here-
It's going to go that way next time.
Whereas in here, because you haven't got to go find it and hit it again.
Yeah.
You'll definitely adjust quicker outdoors. Okay.
And that would be an example of what I feel is a good one without
Yep.
seeing any numbers.
Let's watch 2 more. Be great.
Sure.
So I'll do 1 more of that, and then it'll actually be interesting just to see a couple with the other
Yeah.
club things. We have that. I mean, it's certainly very evident that there's a decent bit of weight there.
Yeah.
You can see you have to work at it. And those last 2, from a flight point of view, you said earlier about it feels a little bit on the flatter side. Well,
Yeah.
10 and 1800, we launched 11.5, 1800 on that one before. Height-wise, 70 feet, which, considering we've got a ball speed up there 155 odd, that's not that high. If I put it on an optimizer, even on maximum total, it's just creeping into the bottom end of it, and that last one will be against just about the bottom end of it. So, as you said, the run-out distance is good, but once you start to get into, well, this time of year, it's just less run-out.
Yeah,
and if you
course.
don't, and if you get that one that just turns a little bit, then it's a knuckle.
Dead.
So the one before, then down at 8-9 launch, and 1600 spin. So certainly the shot pattern makes a lot of sense. I'll come on to a bit more of why.
This is a number that I see always being quite high.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a path
Efficiency
I'll
wise.
put it onto the. I'll take out the
I seem to be
higher
kind of
one
making
there.
the most out of my relatively slow club head speed.
So, 2.5 up, 5 from the inside, face closing. It's a good line through, because the toe's coming through. You're not adding a load of loft to it. So if you take, that one's it's the 9 degree, but it's in the +2.
Yeah.
You're launching it at less loft than is on the head. So that means you're getting into a bit of shaft lean, you're getting into it's an efficient impact position for a ball speed, because everything's sending it forwards rather than up.
Yeah.
And the face is closing, so it's coming out that way rather than
Yeah.
open and spooning it up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're very efficient with the delivery position, but that problem is that it's again, if I stick it on the, that's the
Yeah.
averages,
Yeah.
it's right on the bottom line. If I stick it on, okay, the extreme opposite, the carry, it sits way below where we want to be to max out carry distance. So it's a great links flight into wind.
So don't get rid of this
So
for the odd trip
well,
once you hit the links.
well, I think the weight's definitely an issue. That's one way you can see you as you start, and then it gets that way, and then you've
like,
got to do that to get it through. So for you to improve your delivery, for your frame to stay stable, it's some steroids and a bulk up in the gym required, essentially.
You're not wrong there.
Because you've got to, from there, you've got to be able to keep your frame solid. You've got to be able to get the club back out there.
Yeah. It doesn't,
Without
it doesn't
having to
surprise
catapult
me
it.
that like
So-
my best times with this have been also where I've been in the gym 3 times a week, and that's not happened for the last 4 months.
Yeah, and
So I'm sort of
and your
teetering
tongue's
in a
gotta
very
be bang
narrow
on and-
operating window of my own self to keep this thing going.
But it is one. It's not unusual, but it's right at the top end. I mean, physically you've got to be absolutely spot on. The problem is, on course, when you get one go at it, or if it's a bit cold, or you don't want to have to go hammer and tongs at it. It's just it's kind of hulk up and. and give it a
15th
smash.
ball that I hit with this.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
So
we'll
have a bash at
with
this, shall
that
I?
light and Susan.
We have. Yeah, the one that is like, okay, now
Okay.
I'm thinking about it, and it's.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. So in here, it's a little bit more freed up, and because there's not
There's not a scary
not a
target. There's no
consequence,
out of bounds
Yeah,
over
there's
that
no
way. And,
kind of cavern bunker or rough up to your knees.
yeah, the English Channel all the way up your left.
Yeah. Once you've sent one that way, then the handle's going to go up because you want to make sure it doesn't go left, and then in comes the high right, and that's that one where the moment it gets behind, and then you've got to get it that way,
And then I go,
is
oh,
you
God.
there.
Yeah.
It's either that and catapult or that and handle up, and that's where the two extremes come into it.
Yeah.
Whereas you're
I've
getting a bit
often
of
trotted up a fairway going, great, that's 120 yard dispersion off 2 drives. Send one big left, send one big right.
and where your path is, if you look at kind of the tolerance on it is pretty tight. You've got less than a degree tolerance. Your path is from the inside.
Yeah.
So you've got to create some face rotation to get the ball back onto target. So naturally, a little bit of a start right and draw back. But if it doesn't come back, then you're from 5 degrees at the ball speed. You've got your
Again, in this kind
30,
of
40
context,
yards right,
that would happen. I'd get like the max distance or carry and everything, my biggest numbers tend to come from a straight push, where I've just lined up the facing
and
path.
you're leaving a little more loft on there than it rotating and turning over.
And the spin's like, and then you're like, oh, 2,200 spin. Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
You'll get a 2 on the front of it. You'll launch it probably a 13, and then it's just it has time. It has enough flight to stay at the top of the flight
it's
rather
in
than
the air
just,
for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens with this one.
Okay. Some more launch straight away. Unsurprised it's got more loft on, so should do.
So even with that one, I felt like I could hinge. There's some more hinge here that just happens because there's so much less weight in my hand. I don't know if that's a feel.
I like the Bernhard Langer impression at the end there.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, that's more a strike point of view, face to path 1 degree. Let's do one more with that.
And it's just interesting how distinct they feel back to back like that. Like, wow,
they are
that
pretty
feels
different
so
setups.
different.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a little more split. I can see where that's probably slightly too far to the light side of things, slightly. But comparison-wise, 105 to 103 club speed, you're up a mile an hour and a half on club speed, a couple of miles an hour ball speed. Yeah, I mean, there's still not. I don't think there's quite enough to hit against with that. In terms of from a timing point of view, it doesn't quite drop into plane the way I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
But the fact that there is some, as we described, there's some head weight on, at least you can feel where the head is. I mean, on this one, whilst there's a decent swing weight to it, it's longer, it's heavier, and it might be harder to know where that bit is on the bottom. That one you can see you're aware of it because you can see it managing it when it gets a little bit out of sync.
That's about to go left.
Yeah,
I can feel that it's about to go left.
And so I think that one, I think you overpower that one a little bit, but that's a bit of a, well, club's an appropriate word, but that's just a bit of a sledgehammer. So there is absolutely a middle ground to be found.
So when I do my winter transformation and I'm back to deadlifting what I should be deadlifting, am I going to break a fit doing that, do we think? I'm not going to suddenly get 115. I think
ultimately it depends how much you do. I mean, we can still push it to challenge you a certain amount and not go too safe. Then where kind of a slightly challenged swing is now is then more of a kind of a
I'm with you.
Should be more of a median swing.
Work less hard.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because that one's still going to be all guns blazing.
Yeah.
And whereas that is overly safe. So if you were saying, look, I've got an injury, I don't want to have to work, I want to clip it away, we're looking more at that kind of way. So I think it's really a case of seeing, right, where are we? Where works well now, and how much can we push it before it starts to break down? Take it from there. But I mean, the paradigm head's still a low spin head. I'll be looking, because of your delivery line, we don't need a head that takes a spin off. We kind of look to maintain a bit of flight, and certainly more in that 10.5 degree loft than the 9, which the Rogue is for sure.
I say the first driver. The first driver I ever had was definitely not fit for me. It was passed to me at work during the Golf Punk days. Yeah. It was a Cobra Speed LD. And I was I was definitely in the high teens handicapping then. It was that one that made a terrible sound.
Scoops out the top.
It did have had that going on the top.
Cobra didn't have just one model that did that, but they were distinctive, but okay.
That was the one with the BBC News story where someone got tinnitus from standing on a driving range.
That was the period where that and the FT5 was another one where we were concerned for like my kind of hearing over the years. That's the first health warning I ever had working in golf.
But I did pick up a 12 degree lofted Titleist 913 D2, I think. Yeah. Just a regular flex shaft. Yeah. I could hit fairways with that thing.
Yeah. I mean, so that might spin a bit very too limited. Much, but it would give you flight.
That's as far as it's ever going to go.
Okay.
But
I'm going to start with a kind of middle ground head.
Okay.
Anything in particular that you're interested in trying, or?
I'm quite keen to have a go of the Mizuno stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But also more from. I did a little research watch of you guys on Saturday evening, and you both had good things to say about the Mizuno. And one thing that struck me, moving all the way back to that Titleist to now, that's felt quite nice out of the middle of the head. But something that I've never felt since is that kind of softness out of the middle of the face, where you're like, oh, it's almost like hitting a tennis ball here.
I think some of that is where where they're moving the weight to and the materials used, the notes change. So you kind of don't really get that softness. It's definitely a harder sound. I've noticed that even with the TSR.
That feels like hard, unless I'm really cracking it, and then it doesn't feel so hard. Okay. That felt comparatively very soft off the face.
Yeah, a little bit of the composites used as well. Okay, I'll start with the Mizuno. I'm going to go.
I'm glad some dippy hooks happened. I didn't just stand there blocking them high right.
So I'm going to start with the ST-Z, because we've got to start somewhere.
But to be honest, I am very much here on a brand agnostic. Let's hand that all over to you. This is the one I've said to have a go at, but I'm very open.
We've got to start somewhere. Yeah, we've got to start somewhere. So interestingly, the Mizunos this series tend to be quite low spin.
Right. Okay.
And I'm not allowed to say anything about the new ones coming out yet, but I don't think. I'm trying to remember when the embargo is. But yeah, the Z and the X have actually been quite a low spin model. So go on.
I guess there's not that many drivers and manufacturers out there saying, come and try our high spin driver.
Oh, yeah, but yeah. I mean, they're all. I guess they'd now all be termed relatively low spin.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Clearly, can't multitask to save my life. So, because the low spin is part of creating distance, there is that element of that none of them want to be. I mean, go back several years. That's where basically pretty Titleist were at a weaker part because they were more of a mid-spin head.
Right.
So you had to give up distance unless you were a low-spin player who needed the spin. But that wasn't really a great selling point. So they've come down quite a bit in spin now. But we don't need a head, say like the Paradigm, where it's a bit more of a, let's say, a knuckle, but it's really taking spin off.
Okay.
Or say take the Stealth Plus model, for example, working more from a more neutral launch profile out the head.
It looks very nice. I like the way it looks.
Underrated heads. One of their only difficulties for them is that people aren't looking to buy a Mizuno wood currently, still.
Oh. Give me that one back.
So I've changed the balance point a reasonable bit. So I've not gone a safe change. I've thrown a bit of weight down the bottom end.
Okay.
So there's no point going subtle in the change first.
Right. Yeah.
So. Okay, so that's good side gone a little bit too far with it. So that's actually a toe strike that's brought it back.
Yeah.
So that's now put the weight down the bottom and that's just getting a little bit behind. So I'll soften that back a bit. But I do think I don't want to go a counterbalance shaft. So this is where what we can see straight away is that drops in and you can use the balance in the lower half of the shaft to actually build speed with. So you still have a little bit of a pull on the handle. Once we get the club dropping in, it allows you to drive forward with it. And that's part of the problem with this one is it gets heavy, so it gets behind you, and then you go that way with the head. And so the whole plane gets out of shape.
Yeah.
And that's where the left
and
comes
where
in.
there's this narrow range of performance for it.
Yeah.
So it's either there or there.
Yeah,
and me
you've got to
reacting
be
to the weight is like.
And because it gets that little bit of a kind of, I'm going to exaggerate, that kind of move, your window for managing that face is minuscule. Which is why it's good, bad, rather than okay. Manageable. It's a rotter or it's a really good one.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the misses are just big because it gets horribly out of line.
Sort of heavier than I was expecting when I actually had it in my hands once it was back there. But yeah, it felt like I could. Yeah, maybe, because I towed that one. I'll sneak a look at the number.
So that first one from a, where's the key? Gone there. You're saying that's got the launch up, so for less ball speed, there's your carry. So for you, it's really critical to get it to the top of the flight. Not doesn't have to be a moon ball, but either through a little bit of extra spin and a bit of extra launch, but just then to not have to help it in the air. Because that again, the moment it starts slow, you're going to manipulate the face, and then the right comes into it.
And they're not subtle misses.
Because this one actually launches well relative to loft. We'll see. I may do one of this. What I may do is just because it's a heavy-ish head, I may need to change head just to control the head weight rather than firefight it.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. Let's have a look-see.
Yeah, I'm gonna just so as we go through the initiatives, I'm gonna use a slightly less heavy head just to be able to.
Yeah. It feels like all the weight is at that end of the club.
And that's probably been why we've not done more of them this series. It's a fairly strong head weight, but there's nowhere to change it. whereas with some of the others you can get a different weight.
Well, that's something I've never had in the bag, is anything that's got more than, I could put a really heavy one at the front or at the back. I've never had a driver where I could move weight laterally at all.
Yep. Shall we start with, I'm going to get something a little bit more neutral set up. So you don't need a light club head, it's just that one is quite a heavy
one.
So I'm just going to go TSR2. I'm actually going to initially, I want to test it. I'm going to go back to this Ventus first, just because I think with where the weight was of that Mizuno head, I want to sort of give it a fair test, just to see if we get that swing weight down a little bit, because it's up at D3, D4. These are the same length as the Callaway, just about 45 inches. See where that goes to from a timing point of view. Okay.
Ooh.
So that looked better connected.
Yeah.
So slight low on the face, but that looked like you and the club were much more in sync. Yeah, so spun a bit because it got low on the face, but we can work on that.
Yeah, that felt like
Bottom groove.
But face to path straight away 0.3 of a degree, which is good.
Timing. You've mentioned that word quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and cause that's really what, to nick another fitter's to look at, the shaft is a timing, it is used, she'll talk about the flex and the bend profiles things, but ultimately in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to affect whether you can deliver the head and control. It's like any stick and ball sport, it's about, are you in control of that club? And the only thing is that can affect that is how much weight and where it is. And then how you develop your speed, muscle groups used, that dictates why the weight's got to be where it is, but you have to do the A/B testing and say, right, we know that one was a little bit light. It's not a counterbalance shaft, but it's a very mid balance. We know that at that weight, with a bit of extra head weight, isn't quite there for you. So from a sort of 58 gram shaft, we're at 65, 66. So we've upped the dead weight by 10%, and we've given you a bit more balance in the tip end. So that straight away changes the leverage of how you and the club sync up.
And how my body then feels where that is and what I can then do from there.
So this is the pin G430. Yeah, there's quite a bit going on here.
Okay. So ball speed up. So yes, that's turned a little bit, but I don't mind
seeing that. That's a really nice feel.
That was more of a... You trusted that a bit more. Yeah, we may come back to it.
I wanted to, just because I wanted to have a few more swings, and I was like, oh, that feels really interesting. I'm in a different spot.
What I want is I want to just test the... We'll probably come back to it. We may or may not. I'm not going to use that one. But I just want to test the limits first, and then I don't want to waste swings.
TSR2 Ventus Red to 6, and that's all we've had there. But D3, D4 was he saying? Someone's just asking what was the swing weight at that setup there.
That was D2.
D2.
So keeping it pretty neutral to start with. I want to use the shaft weighting first, and then once we kind of know when we hit the limits of that, then we can fine tune that with a little bit of head weighting. So I want to keep I'm using this just to keep swing weight the same. Swing weight's one of the things, it's not an absolute number. So
it's going to be relative to where
D4 with that is going to feel very different than D4 with this.
Yeah.
But in terms of, because we're making incremental changes now, I want to keep the relevance of the swing weight and just use the shaft to start with. So going up a couple of grams.
What are your thoughts on that comparatively? I think I prefer the other one. Yeah. Yeah, so far dispersion and distance actually better with
I liked the feel of that.
So did or didn't?
I did.
Okay, yeah.
It's just like, again, with the difference, I'm like, oh, give me a couple more, and I reckon that could be really nice. And I could, as we were sort of saying earlier, where I could actually feel where this is.
Yeah.
I know it's about to go left, so there you get the finish out there.
It's one of the more impressive instinctive adjustments in the through swing I've seen over the years, I must say. Okay, so that one, I think we're right at the top end on dead weight. I'll see one more of that, but I think I want to keep it under, so we're at 68 grams on this, we want to keep it under 70 grams. Because if we go, well, for current, and this is where they're kind of, I guess, that once we find sort of optimum now, we know if this is at the upper end, then this potentially gives room for strengthening. But I think if we go heavier, it's going to start to get in behind as you fire.
It too much.
And then you just, okay, we're not at this, we're still 7 or 8 grams lighter than this one, but then that's where the flip comes in. The moment it gets late, and if we go head heavy and it gets late, then it's right.
Yeah.
If we lose the head, so you've got heavy and counterbalance, then then you can wrap the face quick because you can catapult the bottom end.
Yeah. That was a different swing.
Yeah, just hang out. That's definitely that's the top end on the weight. I'm just going to bring it back down a couple of grams.
See, I did one. I did do it in the end. It was a windy day as well. Like kind of wow, where you go from like what I've mucked about with at two ends of the spectrum, and then narrowing it into, oh wow, that really feels like I could just swing away at that. He did tell me. You're not wrong. You're very rarely wrong.
That's on record now as well. So James can edit that bit out if you like.
We need a social clip of that one.
a couple of times recently, and that's what made me get him to try my driver, because there was just this huge wild slice. Didn't really relate to any other swing you made.
Yeah, they come out. They sometimes came out of nowhere, and then that's an instant confidence killer, and you're instantly going, what should I do next then?
Yeah, and the things you say, you kind of go, well, if the swing and the result don't tally up, then you're in a world of pain. Because at least if they tally up, you go, okay, I got some sense of what I did. But if you feel like you've just lumped it down the middle, and it goes 30 yards left or 30 yards right, and go, well, now what do I do?
Yeah, where are we going to move from here?
In absolute no man's land.
When you hit the forehand, left straight every time.
Yeah, and what's quite interesting, I mean, the 6-iron, I don't know why, there's a physics dean could tell me, 6-iron swing rate and driver swing rate often tally up, or very, very close.
Okay.
So your irons are at the 2.5. At neutral length, there's no kind of compensation we've got to make for the swing rate on that. You've got a shaft that's sort of upper mid weight and steel, but mid to lower mid balance point.
Yeah.
So that tallies up with where we're going. So there's an awful lot about the iron setup that kind of makes sense just from a levers and swinging point of view as to where we're starting to go with the wood shafts.
And like I said, with that fit, it was very much, it was the Mizuno optimizer, can we say that?
Yeah.
Other optimizers are available. And then you just had this kind of choice of 3, and then it was definitely down to, right, I feel like I like this one.
Actually,
I don't feel like I like that one.
And actually our instincts are pretty good at telling you, especially if you've done a lot of sport and a variety of sports. Bottom line is your body knows what a balanced move feels like. And if it feels simpler, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what you've done is you just filter through and go, okay, well that feels better, and it'll produce a better result more consistently. So okay, well I'll go with that one. But actually, it's that's sort of kind of what we're doing here, saying, okay, well, let's change. The difference now is we're knowing which parameters we're changing, and so we can maybe dial it in a bit tighter.
Yeah.
But your instincts have done a major part of that job, and so golfers of any standard have the equal ability to do that. It's just that a lower handicap player will trust themselves more that, right, I know what swing I made, the result tallies up, right, great, or I know that was a good swing, it shouldn't have gone right. They trust that they have the ability to determine whether it was good swing or not. And the high handicap player goes, oh, I don't, that's probably not. But actually, physically, just the same ability to know what feels cleaner and simpler.
Yeah.
They just don't trust themselves as much as they ultimately should.
Colourful.
Yeah.
Cyberpunky, or like 2000 AD comic type stuff. Thin.
Yeah, it's interesting. I brought the raw weight back down a little bit there, and that was definitely not getting towards back hip. Okay, right, I'm going to go back to one of the earlier ones. That little hold off, so we're at 64 grams on this, that's slightly light. So the second one where you trusted it more.
Where I've got the lightness and go, oh dear, oh God.
So the first one, bit of a sighter, 104 miles an hour. Next one, trust it more, 106. And then so the first one looked okay, then it got away from it. So I'm actually going to go back to that Ventus Red. The one you didn't want to give me back. But I'm going to give you a little bit more feel for the head on it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
you know, some players, I mean, I'm a couple of, I mean, I know if so I play that SYNYSTR. At 6, I know if I go above 65 grams, I can't time it. I know it gets behind and I flip it.
That's such a...
But if you think you're going from 0 to 106 miles an hour in a fraction of a second, that's and on about a 3 meter long diameter. So, or kind of, not diameter, but the kind of the track of the club.
Yeah, so mass and acceleration
there's a hell of a lot of forces building up to that. So as far as I understand, the accumulator is on a 200 gram driver head at 100 miles an hour, it's 200 kilos of impact, is what the actual mass momentum
cubing the number up.
It's a huge uplift. A few grams in the shaft really is a case of, if you think, we're not a particularly solid frame. We've got hinges everywhere, ankle, knees, hips. So the force gets out of sync a little bit, and we're going to change.
The tiniest half a degree here.
And the moment that goes off, the face goes offline, and then and then the consistency goes. So actually, those. And some players are just a little. We've got a wider window of some players, where you're a little more inside, and therefore you have that rotational release pattern.
So naturally,
then your window's a little tighter. Or you get someone who's a little bit more of a fade bass and all big muscles and
and everything's
you've got
like
stable,
square. Which is generally like technique-wise where I'm trying to go.
Yep. Okay, a little lower on the face, but looks squarer through the line.
I do like it.
Dropped a bit more into out on that swing.
Right. Yeah. I need like a protein shake in the middle of this.
Okay. A bit of that was not going to go left.
Yeah.
You can see it just managed that a little bit. Definitely close.
It does feel easier to swing this club.
I know I had your Langer finished. That actually looked, so it's only drawn because it was a slight toe strike. And now we're starting to see, with that one, starting to see club speed, that's 107. Starting to see that creep up a little bit. So raw weight, so that's at sort of 66 odd. 68 is your top end. I'm going to, because maybe one or two others. I'm just going to just check a couple others at that weight.
It's funny that that looks exactly like that Titleist driver that I was describing to you earlier. It had a red shaft in it as well.
So if it was the 15, that would have been, what was the red shaft they had back then?
I want to say it had a Fujikura logo on it somewhere, but I might be misremembering that.
Trying to remember, they used, can't remember, futile.
913 D2 regular flex red shaft, Dan?
I don't think it was the DBS they used. So just sort of testing around that kind of 66, 67 gram.
Right, we're back. Ooh, very different feel. Wowzers.
We'll give it one more.
There was a lot of, that felt like there's all the weights there.
It's a little more tip balanced, yeah.
Now I've seen the result. Great.
Now, was that just a really good compensation, or did that swing? We'll definitely see one more with that. That was a really good line through. It's just whether it's a
Was it a fluke?
whether it's a unicorn or not. I mean, it's not going to be a million miles off, but it's quite different than the first one. You know, it's interesting. So I would say this looks where that Fujikura one was. That was the top out. I wouldn't want heavier than that.
No,
that looks like something you've
does feel
got
like what
to
we were
go
talking
for
about
a
was
little bit.
like we're in that little.
It's right on that tipping point. There is one other I'm going to grab. Only one other, and I think that's a fairly safe one from a weighting point of view. That's just pushing it a bit more. They just happen to be red. There's one other shaft I'm going to get as well, which is up here.
I've just got a kind of grin on my face because I guess the distinction between like someone like Dan and someone like me is that I'm more inclined to go and spend my money on a lesson, for example, as I am to do this.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that good at this game, you know. Eight sounds impressive until you watch me.
It's a hard sport. It's a hard sport, and but I think that's the thing is and this is where the fitting can help make the. Essentially, what a well-fitted club can do is just show you what you're doing with the swing. But if it can stop it being quite so hard work to deliver it consistently, then actually, if functionally you're battling something, then it's just going to mean that actually what happens on course isn't necessarily representative of what you're doing. So it can make it a lot easier to change something from a lesson point of view because you and the club are working as a team rather than kind of banging heads.
Yeah.
And so certainly with that, so if you came in here with this club, saying to me, right, I'm trying to get handle exiting low left and keep the face on line, the problem is that it's here.
Yeah.
So
how are you going to do it?
It's just not happening because it's just going to go there. So it ends up going, well, it's not, other than doing something very strange with the swing, it's not actually physically very doable with that. So you could spend a lot of money on lessons and be no better off.
Yeah.
Almost worse off, because you then trying to build in a compensation and a really unnatural swing move to try and manage something.
Yeah, which at getting on for 40 is just unlikely that I'm going to generate a brand new movement pattern that I can do consistently over and over again.
And the thing is, you just won't, because your physiology is built a certain way, your muscle fibers fire a certain way, so you're fast twitch or slow twitch, or power based or control based, and your lower body strong or your upper body strong and dominant in terms of where you generate your speed from. So that's not something that lessons. They can change the line of the swing and a little bit of the synchronization of it, but they're not going to change where your dominant muscle groups are. Because that's inbuilt. Now, like I say, maybe a lot of gym work and training in that respect could, but that's a long-term thing.
And again, like nearly 40, run my own company. I'm not going to suddenly.
You've got all the time in the world.
Exactly. I'm not going to suddenly become 4 degrees more flexible in my hip joints, for example.
That's why there are so many shafts on the wall.
There's so many individual bodies, right? I'm able to stay on balance more often. Like
and that's just that dead weight drop, because you're now not here and then having to do that, and then back forward, and you can stay through and stay grounded better.
Yeah, I like that setup for you next. It's unfussy, good across the face, giving us our best numbers today. Yeah, it's a nice setup for you.
Okay, that's fine. Get rid of that one.
Delete.
Worth a check. It was a bit slight sort of check on my side. Right.
Well, sort of. I felt like I'm going to just go for that one, and I produced a terrible golf swing.
But there's also one where it also shows it just isn't syncing up.
It's also becoming apparent to me that I actually can feel the difference, the really minute difference between those two shafts. It's like, oh, okay. Right. Fingers aren't lying to me.
No, and it's the bit that most golfers just assume that they can't feel what's going on, whereas actually most of us really can. Yeah, our instincts have been honed over a good few thousand years. So, some players are very sensitive to it. Some are really not. Some can tell me, oh, that felt like it did that, and describe the plane change. Others go, look, it felt horrible. I don't know why. It's rare that someone says that you say, what when you make a change and they go, I didn't notice anything.
Yeah.
So. Again, much more, wasn't middle, but much more connected through the
ball. Maybe
ball.
that tucked a little to the heel side?
Maybe? Fraction, a little bit, just below centre.
Right.
But straight away face to path back to being very small again. So there's the shot shape, it's just gone where your swing line sent it rather than the face wrapping.
It's random face angle that could happen.
That one turned over a little more. I just want to change the head.
But I'm not so worried about that because of where I'm able to suddenly be finished here and relatively feeling in balance. I feel like I've got more chance to go, oh, I sent one a little bit right, I sent one a little bit left. Okay, we're okay. I'll be able to find neutral from there.
I'm going to go, because you swing from the inside, have a bit of rotation, I'm going to go to the slightly more compact head. I'm going to go TSR3 just because what we do see, certain men, is the more weight you separate off, the more that kind of gearing and controlling it can actually affect the face consistency a little bit. So I'm just going to go to the smaller model.
Yeah, because there's almost an angle and like a torsional force between the two weights, right?
Sorry, I missed the...
So where you were saying about the head there,
yeah,
there's almost, you're creating another fulcrum between the two weights, right?
Yeah.
Something to either be pushing against or something that's easier to...
Yeah, and if you're very, very quiet with the hands and you're not putting any kind of rotation on it, then the face stays on line, and actually that the line of the mass going through, the mass of the head stays on plane. You go there and open it up, well suddenly you've now got to rotate that back through 90 degrees. You're having to exert more force to square that, the more weight separated from the face.
And that CG is then in line for a shorter amount of overall time.
Yeah, it's actually, as you accelerate, that weight's opening the face even more. So, you know, going a little bit more compact in the head, in theory, could well just give a little more control on the face, because you're not going to work quite as hard to get
against another thing that's kind of against me.
I mean, it's a good theory. We'll find out, but it's a good theory. So I'll just get that. So just going slightly heavier with the swing weight on these now, from where we started. So a little more towards where your arms are, so D2.5.
See, there's a question I don't think I've ever asked or Googled. What's the difference between your overall weight and swing weight?
Yeah, so I mean, overall weight, dead weight is really, as you fire from the top, that's energy into the handle, inertia in the club. It's kind of, that's how much energy, effort it's going to take you to get that accelerating and to make sure it stays with you.
Yeah.
So that's where you're picking dead weight on primarily, is that initial pull, and then swing weight, kind of balance point within the club essentially. That's then how you someone who pulls on a handle. Is it all body rotation? How do you, what sequencing you putting that weight through, what leverage you putting it through, and then you're finding a balance point in the shaft and a head weight to just time that up. So kind of
the combination
swing weight, you could argue, is more kind of head timing in terms of squaring up and synchronization, then dead weight is body and club sync.
I think I picked that all up.
Yeah. Kind of someone's release pattern, I hate that term, but release pattern would be where you're tuning swing weight to time with that.
So
and then
the
your
swing
general
weight is here,
strength timing,
and overall weight is from everything.
Okay. That's interesting. That's just up again in terms of ball speed. Just hit 160 ball speed.
Do you know what? Unnamed driving range, relatively local to here. On the top deck, half giving it away. 182 ball speed. Click. Not a true reading.
I mean, if it is, then,
it was a warm,
I'd like
sunny day,
and how many coffees you'd had that.
It was a warm, sunny day, and I was just throwing my hands at it, and it was working. Looking up and going, I don't doubt it. 182, no chance.
It would be a jump. It would be a jump. But that was, so I mean, that one carried 272. That's straight away better ball speed. Okay, a bit of weight just came off there with that hit, but your ball speed's better with this head. That one dropped a little, so there's a bit of this is there. The first, they're both relatively inside. That one dropped a little bit more inside and a little more up. So that's where some of the shape's going to come from. But where we can see is where your club speed, ball speed are up with this immediately. I'm just going to replace that little bit of weight that just came off that. So this would be where we'd be saying, okay, well, just feel like it's a little bit, a very slight fade fit. Just squaring that path off a little bit more. Because you've then got to, at 8 degrees into it, you've got to move it 4 degrees closed path to get it back to target. But the lighter total weight versus your current one should make it easier to bring that path working left and keep the handle in sync. Just open face. So path stayed the same. Just open face.
That's one thing that I will do in, it's like a perception, proprioception of what is face and what is path.
Okay, Does
that make some sense?
Yeah.
Because you said try and hit a fade, and I've immediately just left the face wide open with the same path.
Do you get some players, I'm I'm much better at working club face than if I do path, I'll overdo it. And I've got a very good friend of mine who has to use path rather than club face. So if he just sends the path more right, he'll draw it. Sends the path more left, he'll fade it. For me, if I try and send path left, I'm going to hit a slice.
Yeah.
Because I end up going that and opening the face. So I'm better at keeping path neutral and just either holding the face off a little bit or letting it go a little bit more. And so, and that's again just the kind of the, I guess the golf intelligence bit is right, which one suits you more. So it might be actually kind of saying, okay, well your path's into out. If we get something that squares off a bit more, then you do a Litruvino, you aim a bit left and you hit effectively a block on line. But if you are naturally shallower plane, then your path's going to be more into out naturally. And it then ends up a big deal to shift your path that much. So Rory did it several years back. He was working a fade from a block fade. He was in China. I remember saying, and he won. Did he win out in China that year? But he was definitely not trying to work the path out to win more.
No.
Because he felt that board in the pull draw. So
because he'd end up just trying to come from here because he felt like he needed that room to give it loads of that. But yeah, still hitting a fade from something that obviously he felt somewhere around here.
Yeah, because if the path stays the same, well, all you got to do is just leave the face a little bit open, rather than shift the whole path of the track of the swing.
When you see those kind of swing or like playing technique videos, which is like, this is how you hit a fade, and some people will just say, well, all I really do is open myself slightly.
Langer.
Langer, leave the face on target, and it just works.
He's
like, but
clearly
that's
a
not
long lost relative from the follow through anyway. But that might just be the better way of doing it for you. Saying, okay, well, if the path is 5, 6, 7 degrees into out, well, aim left centre of the fairway and then just hit. Because then you haven't got to manage the face as much. So you're managing path through aim line. And your path's pretty darn repeating at that 5 to 7 degrees into out. So, well, aim 10 yards left and just block it on line. Because then you're taking out the need to bring it back to target. That may well be the, and it might be a Woods
Sounds
thing.
familiar, that.
Okay, it might be a Woods thing rather than irons thing.
Definitely.
And with the longer shaft length, it just gets shallower, a little bit more inside. Ball speed's really still turning over a little. I'm just going to go to that other shot. The ball speed off this head is noticeably higher. Club speed as well is up. They're all. We're at 158, 59, 156, 53, 50, 58, 56. That's 1 to 2. I mean, and there's one in there. Let me say 160, 160. There's that one at 154. Yeah, the rest are at 160. So a good couple of miles an hour higher with that head.
Yeah, and it does feel like I'm not, lifting a weight in terms of the effort that it takes to make a relatively calm ball flight happen.
Yeah. Essentially, it's about developing. It's about generating speed rather than hitting hard.
Yes.
So.
Which is the thing I think again, just comparing like driver to iron swing in general, I hit at the ball more with driver than I do with my irons.
Yeah. Some of that's enforced. I certainly, when you're using yours rather than Dan's, it's you've got to, otherwise it's not coming with you. So you've got
it's going to be it will be that one that goes that way.
Otherwise it's hanging behind you. So you've got to then get the right shoulder in and heave at it. I'm going to put this one back into this.
Which, because I kind of generally feel like I want to create power like that, that's where it can get into a really nice, although very fine, operating window. Me again.
So face to path, so slight toe strike, face to path 0.1 of a degree, so dead square. So that's just, again, I don't mind, I'd rather see almost that delivery because the face is under control. Okay, path's into out, but the face is stable. It probably And it's just then that question mark of, I think, that aiming versus how much have you got to work the club face to.
Yeah.
What's interesting, going back to that one that was on the heavier side, having hit now, that's his 37th basically drive. Does that replicate the strong, if you get a little bit stronger, does that give us that? Because that looked really under control.
Yeah.
And
we've clearly
got
found
rather a nice set of numbers there.
Yeah, we've clearly found something where, all of a sudden I'm in more balanced finish position, which I think is that sort of feel that you mentioned that golfers have. Oh, that felt good because I'm suddenly going, oh, I'm not even wobbling at all. Or
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and with it, interesting with this head, we're on a solid hit rather than the sort of miss where you open the face. We're at 160 every single time, and so that's not got a faster face than any others. You're definitely moving that a little bit better with the slightly smaller head shape, with the weight a little bit closer to the face. The key thing with that head is it's not a massively low spin head, so we're not having to go loads of loft to keep the spin in check. We're not having to go high launch, very low spin and get it moonballing. That's very much in our, might have see strike point, might be a hair just below the equator on it, but that's also got us in a, I'll put it carry in total. Considering that's slightly low on the face, launch can go up a bit, spin can come down a bit, but that's in a very, very safe place.
And that probably would happen if it was like 3 mil higher.
Yeah, exactly that. But we're, with this head, ball speed wise, we are right up there with where we want to be, and it's been noticeable. It's been a couple of revs, a couple of miles an hour higher.
The man is a genius.
It's very kind of you to say. But no, it's interesting that we've seen more of the front back weight distribution difficulties actually as they've gone lighter and lighter in the crown. Take something like the Mizuno head, you've got very light crown, very light centre section, weight at the front, loads of weight at the back. So actually over the last 2 or 3 models, if you go back to probably the, which of the colourways was it? Would have been one of the Epics where they dragged that little bit more weight to the back. We started to see more kind of lower speeds who've got a bit of face to just not be able to square them. So that weight distribution front back on the head is something that the last few years in particular, okay, if you do roll the face open a little bit and have the tendency to over rotate it, ironically you'd think, well, gear it a bit more, but actually the face opening a bit more is the reason you've then got to catapult it more. So losing a bit of that stops you having to fetch it as hard, that allows you to leave the face on the line a little bit more.
Because it's front to back in terms of our perception of it when we look at it static, but it's not front to back once you're on a plane, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, it kind of works. Then works it's underneath and over. It's on that, on that axis. Yeah.
Stuff we're doing at Derby University. Yeah. So the guy I'm working with at Derby did his PhD at Golden
Yeah, so slight toe strike.
Yeah.
But 1 degree open club face and slight toe strike equals a very, very neutral shot. We've got the same pattern. I saw a little bit of lead tape come off that. I'm just going to put that back off. But then what happens there is, I would then encourage you to say, okay, well, neither of those is shaped because of face angle.
They're shaped because of toe side strike.
Toe side strike. So that's then a case of, well, instead of aiming down the, or actually I think you're erring slightly right side.
Yeah,
aim,
maybe I'm creeping.
Aim left edge of that green and then just make this, and so easy, then just make the same swing. Off it goes down the middle.
Aim completely differently, but make the same swing, yeah?
Disengage your brain completely.
Yeah, especially when there's that, there's a target involved and you're 2 down.
Yeah, exactly. Just free it up. Everything's fine. It's interesting. I don't think that's gone as far left as some of the earlier ones. Yeah. So what we're starting to get now with this, again, club speeds up, but yes, it's gone a little left, but that's more manageable left. That's still in the cut section.
I felt like, well, I did the Langer thing there. Like, oh shit, that's gone left, but it was nowhere near as left as I felt.
Yeah, I think where this is then got that little bit more. We're seeing club speed of 108, so that's now still moving up a little bit. We're still in a safe place on spin. but it's in play still. A little lower on the face, 161 ball speed, face to path back to 0.5. So for me, and I know we haven't hit loads of driver head combinations, but what we're getting at here is if I go on to averages here, you've got a 149 smash, 160 ball speed. There's a calculated spin, which is why that's saying it's showing you italic. But your face to path, 0.9 of a degree on average, with a couple of degrees. Now that's the one that's a couple of degrees out. The rest are actually very, very, very stable. I'll run through those. We go 0.1, 1.5 open. That last one, 0.5.
Yeah.
And there was one that got more closed. That's the one that did the Langer, and you knew it was happening.
Yeah. And if that happened on the golf course, I'm not going to be, hopefully, depending on the hole and where I aimed, obviously, but hopefully not reaching for another ball. Yeah, and the others are down the same start line, each one. It's just what couple were slightly toe side, so they've drawn a little bit. One was a little low on the face, so it spun a little bit, but that's still, we're still at that carry was 270, 272, 273. And that comes back to what you said about 267. Those swings felt like those things were going to happen. Yeah, and interesting, having hit a few more, this is where this to me just looks like a confident swing rather than having to force it. And that's the one. I think that's where the club head speed's going up, because I'm like, oh, okay, just swing away, letting it go. And ironically, swing weight D2.6, which is where your irons are. Which I can't explain why it's the case, but just. Is that a tendency that you see? Yeah. It was something that initially when Jamie and I started 20 odd years back, I kind of saw it happen and go, oh, you kind of think, oh, am I making it go there? Yeah. And over the years, I've just seen it go there. It's something that's been a consistent trend over time. Yeah. So maybe slightly pushy. Yeah. Oh. Just over-manage the club face a little bit. Yeah, I was trying to. Try that aim up the left. Yeah. Push, sort of feel. One just came, that looked like that came over. Well, 3 and 3. So face to target, basically dead square. That's just got a little bit, it's because of the speed, you can't get away with being half a degree close to target. Yeah. But actually you can see where path's gone, it's halved, less than half. Yeah. So that's just a little bit of your hands getting used to not squaring the face and leaving it on line. Yeah. I also find, like, as soon as I love being on sims and getting data, but if I start trying to change a number instead of just striking the golf ball good, then it can get a really shaky ground there, because then you're going, why can't I change my path? And you're swinging like this. It might well be that you're somebody who's more of a visual player, so you'll set up to the shot that's in front of you. So if you had a hole that was a dogleg left to right, you'll. My body and everything that is already reacting to what's in front of you. Whereas here it's just a dead straight fairway that you don't have to line up with anything. The trackman's lined up, so not having to go through all those processes. A little lower on the face. Yeah, that was low on the face. But again, it's. I was aiming left on that one again, so if I just so 6 on the path. I would say with these. I think you can see where you're used to playing shots the whole time. Your hands almost want to be doing something. If you can just free them up, just let them go with the flow. Okay. Because they're not needing to manipulate the face anymore. And that's where we take out left. Yeah. And that's all me reacting to the swing that came before. Yeah. So the more they relax, the less of that there's going to be. So if you can free up your hands and arms, then actually some of that left-hand side goes. And I feel like, we've not changed my general shot pattern, no. But still in play, pretty bad swing. Still in play, I was aiming left and managed to draw it a bit. Yeah, and I think as we were saying there, I think a lot of the lefts are where
your small muscles like being involved. They like having to do something. They just cock everything up. But they only do something if they've got to put club on back of the ball. So you've got to fetch, flip, hold with this one.
Yeah.
With that one, these things can just chill out. But it's actually quite a hard thing to do because they like firing up.
They do.
It gives them
something to do.
It's like throwing a ball, you just let it go. Yeah, and that's so much more stable through the ball from a face point of view. And that's not right, not middle, but we're back at a couple of degrees.
Bit low on the face, I thought.
A little bit low on the face, yeah. Centered a little bit low, but that's resulted in 11 inches offline, sorry. So that's the bit where now we've got this bit working for you, and it's coming with you. Your hands don't have to find impact anymore and go, just stay where you are. So, and the last thing I want is a knuckly spin. We had, that's a little low on the face, but that's still, this is where this head, I've gone to the TSR3 this year, and the ball speed maintenance is very good. The spin stability is very good. Like the one before, there's a slight push, got a little higher up the face, 16-2-1. That, we put that on an optimized for carry, is going to be absolutely A1. But because it stayed a little bit open, it launched up a little bit. If I go into, carry in total, that last one's a little low on the face.
Yeah, which
the spin's still in a good window. So it's not like with the TSR2, it flared right up. The TSR3, it stayed much more stable. But we're not risking a nosedive knuckle of the 1700s like we've got. So that's where, combination-wise for me, that one sits. And then we get it stayed a bit right. We get the solid ones in terms of hits. We can see where launch and spin are just in a really nice, solid. And like, forgive me saying safe window, but anyone who's got a miss left, we want a safe window. Because that lets you send it and it doesn't. It doesn't just fall out away from it. And keeping a bit of spin on it actually just does stop it from getting away from you as well. You're not short a distance. We're not trying to squeeze 5 extra yards out of it. That's in the tank if you get contact on it and get the
and build some confidence over putting this setup in the bag. Build some confidence with it over a few weeks, and then.
So the only other thing I did do,
swings.
Partly because of where strike point tends
towards the toe.
A little towards the toe. I've just moved that weight in the back of the TSR3. Just the toe side a little bit, because it is, and then here, just into that toe side, and that's also it's a T height thing. You might just manipulate that just to get it up the face a little.
Sorry, that's a fun picture for me to look at.
But I think a lot of those go once you get out of the habit of saving it.
Well, there were a few of those where I was aiming left side as well.
True.
So
that it's that consistent start line up that right side, and then the more your hands trust where it's going to go, the more that tightens up, because we're not having to mess around with the face to path because it's online. So they're very happy. And that's the 10 degree in the TSR3. I'll measure the exact loft on it. Weight a little in the toe side. We're at D2.5 swing weight, 67 gram.
This little artisan.
So that's something that we do in the fitting bay, but would build that into the build. So because we're looking at no, we wouldn't even need to do it with that, because that would probably add, in principle, relative to that amount, would add too much. So where this is about a 3/4 of a gram maximum, it's half a swing weight point. And so that we can do either just natural head weights will dictate that's where it's going to be. We may not even add any weight to the head at all, depending on what grip we end up with as well. So
Motore. Motor E?
Motore, definitely Motore. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's really mind-blowing that we've got there.
So.
And that it didn't completely turn into a lesson as well for that club.
No, I say, and we're 10 grams lighter than this in dead weight in the shaft and a different balance point. So that's where a lot of the problems are. You know, 10 grams is a lot. It's 15, 16%. So it's quite a lot.
Yeah,
in terms of that
percentage-wise. And then
percentage-wise.
what we were talking about once it's actually accelerating and has got speed on it, how much more weight
and then
that is.
that kind of was not catapult how that then affects what you've got to do with the face. You get out of sync at that speed, then the face rotation rate starts to get up a hell of a lot. So.
What's the time?
Oh,
Crikey.
10 to 12. Yeah.
Wow,
Flying
right.
fast, isn't it?
Quick, let's look at the
No,
other
no,
bits at the back.
yeah, we're good.